Before we begin, gather close. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's a wake-up call to every heart that takes love for granted. If you crave stories soaked in betrayal, redemption, and karma served hot, click subscribe now and join the fire. Because this tale burns. The sun hadn't fully risen over the city skyline when David Ease pulled his silver Mercedes into the courthouse parking lot. The windows were tinted, but the inside of the car was charged with tension. David wore a charcoal suit that cost more than most people's rent, but not even the tailored cut could cover the unease etched into his features. Beside him sat Bianca, draped in a short sequined red dress that shimmered even in the dull morning light. She chewed gum like it was her job, her long acrylic nails clacking against her phone screen as she scrolled through Instagram without a care in the world. "Is she coming or not?" Bianca asked, blowing a bubble with her gum. David glanced at his Rolex. 8:43 a.m. "She'll come," he muttered. "She's never been late to anything in her life. Hope she's not planning a last-minute sob story," Bianca said with a roll of her eyes. "Because I'm not in the mood." David didn't answer. His eyes were glued to the courthouse steps, watching every car that passed, every person that walked by. Amaka was supposed to arrive at 9. That was when the judge would finalize the divorce papers. That was when David Ease would officially be a free man. But something didn't feel right. Not about the morning. Not about the woman sitting next to him. Not even about himself. 3 years ago, David and Amaka had been the picture-perfect couple. Young, wealthy, beautiful. A love that started from their university days in Succa, survived a struggling startup phase, and blossomed when David's tech company went international. They were the golden pair. The ones people pointed to and whispered, asterisk, "That's real love." Asterisk. Until it wasn't. The money changed things. David got busier. Amaka stayed grounded. And then came Bianca. David never planned to cheat. He wasn't that kind of man. But Bianca had a way of filling silence with excitement. She laughed easily. She made him feel young again. She made him feel seen, or so he thought. What started as a harmless flirtation turned into a full-blown affair. And Amaka, sharp and emotionally intelligent, picked up on it almost immediately. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply moved out. Inside the courthouse, Judge Olanrawaju sat behind his heavy oak desk, flipping through the divorce papers. He was a man of routine, methodical, stern, efficient. This would be his 3rd divorce case that day. But something in the file caught his eye. Amaka Ease's refusal to file for alimony. Her signed waiver of asset claims. Her silence. It wasn't typical. A woman married to a multimillionaire tech entrepreneur for 10 years, walking away with nothing. He leaned back in his chair and sighed. "People don't walk away for free unless they're walking into something better," he muttered to himself. His clerk, a young intern named Fola, looked up. "Sorry, sir." "Nothing," the judge replied. "Just get ready to call them in. They have until 9:15. 9:07 a.m. David checked his watch again. Bianca was growing restless, tapping her nails on the glove box. Then, a deep hum cut through the silence. From around the corner, a black Rolls-Royce limousine rolled slowly into the parking lot. Its polished body gleamed like obsidian under the sun. The chauffeur stepped out and walked briskly to the back door. David leaned forward. Bianca squinted. Then the door opened, and Amaka stepped out. The courtroom was a quiet storm waiting to explode. David sat at the plaintiff's table, flanked by his attorney, who was still flipping through papers. Bianca had refused to sit in the back like a stranger. She stood near the door, arms crossed, eyes locked on Amaka as she entered. Amaka walked in holding a black folder. Her attorney, a sharp-eyed woman in a tailored red suit, followed close behind. David noticed something peculiar. Amaka wasn't just calm, she was confident. It wasn't the confidence of a woman giving up. It was the power of someone who had nothing to lose and everything to reveal. The judge, a stern man with a reputation for hating drama, entered. "All rise." They rose. "You may be seated." David's lawyer rose. "Your Honor, we are here today to finalize the divorce between David Ease and Amaka Ease, as previously submitted to this court." The judge nodded, looking over the files. Then Amaka's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we'd like to submit new evidence before proceeding." David's head snapped up. "What evidence?" The judge raised a brow. "Proceed." Amaka's lawyer placed a USB on the table. This drive contains audio recordings, dated and time-stamped, detailing the plaintiff's infidelity, coercion and financial deceit, including the unlawful transfer of joint assets into offshore accounts. David nearly stood up. "That's ridiculous." Amaka's lawyer didn't even look at him. Bianca's jaw dropped. The judge adjusted his glasses. "And who made these recordings?" he asked. Amaka stood. Shaken. "I did," she said. Gasps whispered through the room. The courtroom clerk plugged in the USB and played the first clip. David's voice echoed through the speakers. It was unmistakably him, laughing, mocking Amaka's naivety. "She'll sign anything. She thinks the accounts are still joint. She doesn't even know I moved the money already." The room went still. The second clip followed. Another damning statement. Another dagger. David shrank in his seat. Amaka never looked at him. Not once. Instead, she calmly opened her folder and began flipping through papers, almost as if she were reviewing receipts at a quiet cafe. The judge looked up, frowning. "Mr. Ease, do you dispute these recordings?" David was silent. "Do you wish to proceed with this divorce, or would you prefer the court opens a fraud investigation?" His lawyer whispered urgently into his ear. David's heart pounded like a war drum. This wasn't how today was supposed to go. Not at all. Outside the courtroom during recess, Bianca exploded. "You told me everything was clean. That she wouldn't fight back." David didn't answer. He was too busy staring at Amaka, who stood a few feet away on the courthouse steps, speaking to a man in a military uniform. "Who's that?" Bianca asked. David didn't recognize the man. But he saw something terrifying in the way the soldier saluted Amaka before leaving. It was respect. Not formality. Respect. Amaka glanced back at David with a raised eyebrow. "Who is she?" Bianca repeated. David shook his head slowly. "I don't know anymore." Amaka had spent their marriage quiet, soft-spoken, supportive. Now it was like he was meeting a completely different woman. A queen who'd been pretending to be a maid. Back in the courtroom, Amaka rose again, her voice steady. "Your Honor, I also wish to present documents of financial abuse. Over the past 5 years, my husband transferred over 70% of our joint earnings into accounts in the Cayman Islands, under his name only." She passed the documents forward. David's face was ghost white. The judge scowled. "Is this true?" David's lawyer whispered urgently into his ear again. But David was numb. Amaka didn't stop. "My gallery, which he once laughed at, is now one of the top 5 black-owned art spaces in West Africa. We made it despite him, not because of him." Bianca muttered under her breath. "What gallery?" David's fingers gripped the table like claws. Amaka turned her gaze directly to him. "You never thought I'd stand up. You thought silence meant weakness. But the palm tree sways. It does not break." It was the first time she'd looked him in the eye since the day began. And in that moment David knew. He hadn't just lost his wife. He'd lost the war. As the judge adjourned briefly to review documents, thunder cracked outside. Rain began to pour, sudden like a switch had been flipped. Inside, the courtroom was silent. David stared at nothing. Bianca paced like a caged animal. Amaka remained still. Not cold, just resolved. An intern brought her a bottle of water. She thanked them, then crossed one leg over the other and waited. She wasn't there to hurt anyone. But she wasn't going to let herself be destroyed either. It was justice, or nothing. And deep down David knew. He'd underestimated her from the beginning. When the judge returned, the room straightened. He cleared his throat. Having reviewed the evidence presented, this court can no longer proceed with a standard divorce ruling. Financial misrepresentation and asset concealment are serious charges. Therefore, this divorce is temporarily suspended pending a criminal investigation. David's jaw dropped. Bianca gasped. The judge continued. Furthermore, a temporary freeze has been placed on all assets belonging to Mr. Ease, until clarity is established. Amaka blinked slowly. David shot to his feet. You can't do this. The judge banged his gavel. Sit down, Mr. Ease, or I'll hold you in contempt. David collapsed into his chair. The courthouse was no longer his battlefield. It was her victory ground. Outside the courthouse, rain still fell. Bianca didn't wait. She turned to David, eyes full of fire. You lied to me. About the money. About her. About everything. Bianca. No. She stepped back. You ruined her, then dragged me into your wreckage. And now it's burning from both ends. She stormed off into the rain. David didn't follow. He couldn't. Because deep inside he knew she was right. As the press swarmed outside, Amaka stepped up to a podium. Her voice was calm but commanding. This isn't just my story. It's the story of every woman who's been silenced, cheated, betrayed. Today isn't revenge. It's rebirth. Cameras clicked. Microphones jostled. And just like that, she turned away, leaving behind a broken man, a shattered illusion, and a crowd that had just witnessed something far greater than a divorce. They'd witnessed justice wearing heels and walking tall. That evening, Amaka sat in the back of her limo. The rain had stopped. She looked out the window as the city lights passed by, then pulled out a small envelope from her bag. Inside was a photo of her and David from years ago. She looked at it once, then tucked it into the side compartment. The driver asked, "Home, ma'am?" She smiled. "No," she said. "Take me to the gallery." And as the limo drove into the night, Amaka leaned back, free, not just from a man, but from a shadow she had lived in for far too long.